Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Sermon, and I'm thrilled to have you here today with us on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. This show is for those wanting to learn more about creating financial wellness, and we're going to look at different life cycles, and we're going to be exploring them both financially and emotionally, because personal finances are usually not about the money, but more about the emotions associated with your finances. We may be fairly general in our discussion, but we'd love to hear from you and make it more relevant. So please join the conversation. You can reach me through my website, which is lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. Or you can post your comments or questions on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere else that you might be listening. I have a quick public service announcement for those of you in the US. The tax filing deadline is now less than 2 weeks away. If you're in the US, please take note of that. And please don't freak out. That's really the announcement I want to make. There is still time. Please watch out for the advanced child tax credit. That has been a trouble spot for many people, as well as recording the stimulus, especially if you have been alternating claiming the children if you've gone through a divorce. If you think you're going to be late, please file an extension. It is not that difficult to do and is much better than being late. And I want to say that divorce, as we've discussed on the show, is all inclusive when it comes to the areas of a person's life that it impacts. It impacts you legally, financially, emotionally, and more. Within the process, there are areas of expertise that you might want to draw on. Anyone who's listened to my show or who has worked with me knows I strongly encourage preparing, educating yourself. You need to know your priorities. You need to know your rights and responsibilities. You need to build the team that's going to work best for you. And through all of this, you can optimize your outcomes. What better way to do all of that than to attend a divorce university? Yes, there is such a thing. And you may be asking yourself, what are they going to think of next? But the truth is, this is not something new. This event has actually been going on, and this is the 36th divorce university. We're going to speak more about that through the show, but today we have two wonderful guests who focus on different areas within the divorce process, which is always nice to hear how do these things all come together instead of listening to each discipline separately. Nanette McCarthy is a partner with Griffin, McCarthy, and Rice, and Bobbie Gordon is the program and outreach coordinator for the Lilac Tree in Chicago. Before we get into Divorce University, I would love for the two of you, if you can, just to touch a little bit on what each of you do so people understand your perspective, where you come from, passion behind what you do. So I'm going to ask if you can say hi and give a quick overview of what your background and your roles are.
Hi, Hirsch. Thanks for having us on. So I'm Nanette McCarthy, and I am a partner in a family law firm in downtown Chicago. We have 12 attorneys in our law firm. I've been practicing for, I keep saying 25, but it's actually 27 years now. And I have always practiced family law. I started out in a different area and of law, which was not so connected with people, and quickly got a chance to do family law and quickly loved it. So that's me.
And Bobbie, if you would too.
Sure. I'm Bobbie Gordon. Hi there. I feel like welcome to the world of initials. So I'm an LCSW, which means I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Just like it's important as you go through this process to remember all and to think about all these initials. As an example, Nanette's a JD. She's a lawyer. And Hirsch is a CDFA, a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. All of these initials are important. Besides being a licensed clinical social worker, I also have a strong background in the area of abuse, domestic abuse. I've been a social worker I just added up the years, 49 years I've been doing this, which is frightening. And I've been in the field in the area of dealing with people who are in abusive relationships for the last 23 years. So I look through things through a fairly specific lens.
Thank you. I appreciate both of you being here. One of the things we've spoken about is that our environment, the law, our society is ever changing. Can you share a little bit about what you are seeing in the divorce process that people should be aware of and maybe even should avoid sometimes, because we can get stuck on things?
Yeah, I can start us off and talk about the fact that in the last, since the pandemic, courts have changed. They've been very loaded. There's definitely a backlog. We had a period of time when, before the pandemic, courts were very busy. And then to have, it essentially ended up probably being about a 6-month bump or halt on things as the courts were trying to figure out what to do now that we weren't going to be able to come into court. And since then, the courts have been trying to catch up. So I think what people should know is that it's a long process. And if there is a way that you can try to resolve issues without having without having a judge make a decision on your case, if you can take advantage of alternative dispute resolution forums like mediation or collaborative law, or, just simply working with an attorney and trying to negotiate rather than trying to take your chances in court. Sometimes that has to happen. Sometimes when settlements and negotiations are going nowhere, you have to ask a third party who knows nothing about you to help you make a decision. But people should really know that it's a long process and you have to exercise a lot of patience.
I appreciate that, because I am sure both of you have heard more times than I have people say, I just want this to be over.
I heard that.
and I would say one of the things to be careful on with that is you really need to be patient, because sometimes we rush to a decision just to get it over, and it's not always the best decision for us long term, and we do need to be aware of that. So I think that's great advice. And I think one of the things is, once a decision has been made, and I will point out it's not always your decision to get divorced, but once that decision is made to get divorced, there's quite a bit that needs to get done. So the more you're able to plan, the better. As I said earlier, I'm a huge advocate of people planning and educating themselves. In your opinions, what are some of the must-dos before stepping into a negotiation or into a court?
So I think you bring up a really important point, Hirsch, but I want to take a step back. And I want you to think about the fact that just because you're listening to this program doesn't mean you're necessarily getting divorced. You might be here just gathering information, which is just wonderful, because I want you to remember that knowledge is power. So one of the things that Lilac Tree offers is what we call an information session, which is an opportunity to sit down with someone who has been doing this for a number of years, myself or one of the other counselors there, to talk about what does divorce look like in Illinois. And as it's important to remember that divorce, as Nanette, I think, mentioned previously, is a state issue. So what your friend in Florida went through is not going to be indicative of what you're necessarily going to go through. So sitting down, scheduling an hour with a counselor at Lilac Tree, what might divorce look like for me? And I would ask you a bunch of questions to try to get a better idea. You want to get your ducks in a row. But even before you do that, what you don't want to do is listen to your partner, your significant other, or to your friends about what their divorce experience has been like, because everyone experiences divorce in their own way. And that's something that's really important to remember. So knowledge is number one. Find out what the law is in your state, in your particular state. If you live in Illinois, call the Lilac Tree and schedule an information session. And even if you live out of the state of Illinois, there are things that are similar throughout all the states. And an information session can be very helpful to you no matter where you live.
Sorry, go ahead, Nanette. Were you going to add something there?
Yeah, no, Bobbie's right. We were talking a little bit about this, how that's one of the things that the Lilac Tree does very well is to give people a chance to take a step back and gather information. A lot of times people are really worried about, well, if I start this process in an official way, then everything's going to get out of control. And my spouse doesn't want me to do that. My spouse wants me to just talk with him or her. And we're just going to do it between ourselves and it's going to be okay. And what I have found, and whenever I hear that, I generally cringe, because it's usually the person that's telling me that, the person that's hearing that, is the person that needs the advice and needs the education the most. It's always the person that is more, has more financial superiority, more emotional, or business savvy. That's the one that's saying, you know what, just, it's fine. Don't call a lawyer. Don't talk to anyone. We can do this ourselves. It'll be fine.
I'm going to be fair.
And what I hear, what I hear sometimes is, if you listen to your partner, whether it's your spouse or your partner, it doesn't matter if there's children involved. But if you listen to your partner, they don't necessarily have your best interests at heart. And I've had situations where people sign things and then a year later recognize that the repercussions of what they signed and what they agreed to. So this is a very important decision, and you want to make sure that you understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. It's important, it's emotional, and it's expensive. All of the above. And if you were
sorry, go ahead, finish.
If you were having some procedure, some surgical procedure, you would find out everything about it before you did it. So divorce is a legal surgical way to end a relationship. And you need to be knowledgeable about it. You need to
I just got to share some things, because there's so much in there that's so important. You can live next to somebody, they'll have a similar home, they'll drive similar cars, probably have similar amount of kids, and have 100% different divorce to what you have. And I've said that on the show before. And knowing your state laws is incredibly important, because that filters into your tax situation, your financial situation. Some states, they understand and they recognize legal separation. Others do not, like Texas. So you got to be careful on that. And, what happens if I'm living in a different state? You need to understand, there are implications with that. There's a lot that plays into this. I would also say, people look at this sometimes as a game of poker. And I literally had somebody tell me that the spouse convinced them we don't need financial affidavits, because he didn't want to declare everything. Afterwards, she found out there was a bank account he didn't tell her about. And he looked at her and he said, we were just playing a game of poker and I played it better. So yes, please be very, very careful when your spouse says, don't worry, I will take care of you. I will be fair. We're going to do this. You really do need to know your rights, your responsibilities, and you really need to know what you want at the end of all of this reasonably, and be able to work towards that. And sometimes that's where you need people like anyone on this conversation who can help you work through those and understand all of that. I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of this takes an emotional toll on people, right? So I'm going to ask you to share a little bit on what people can do regarding self-care, maintaining a healthy emotional state, things like that, because that becomes so much more important going through a stressful and lengthy sometimes process like a divorce.
Absolutely. And I feel like this is the area that I can really help people with, as can the Lilac Tree. So I really want you to think about divorce as having two tracks: an emotional, like think about trains on a track, an emotional track and a legal track. And these tracks are meant to run parallel, right? Train tracks run parallel. And when they intersect is when we have problems. So you want to separate the emotionality from the legality of a divorce. And that is such an important piece of this whole process. And for that, you need a therapist. I think one of the most important members on your team, on your divorce team, is a therapist who is a neutral person. I love lawyers. They're wonderful, Nanette, but lawyers make lousy therapists. You don't have the training. And what I say to clients is, so your lawyer's charging $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 an hour, right? And they make a lousy therapist. So use them as a lawyer, use their expertise, not their emotional expertise, their legal expertise. A therapist, if you want to pay a therapist $300 an hour, you can probably get any therapist in the entire country, because therapy is not at that price level. And a therapist helps you keep the emotionality out of the legality of a divorce.
Can I just add one thing, Bobbie, which is when you're right that there's an emotional and a legal part that runs parallel, but very often and almost all the time, two individuals that are going through the process are not parallel with each other.
No.
One person is ready for divorce and the other person is not ready for divorce. And that dynamic creates a lot of problems in terms of two people who, want different things at different speeds. And we know that as lawyers, we know that one person's ready, one person's not ready, and it can really complicate things. So it's so important to have some support other than legal support as you're going through this process.
Right. And then additionally, what I hear all the time from my clients is it's not fair. It's not fair. And divorce is not about getting what's due to you. The courts in Illinois, Illinois is a no-fault divorce state as an example. So the court doesn't care if your partner was unfaithful, if your partner has substance abuse issues, if your partner has been abusive, or if your partner is a narcissist. That's not what the court cares about. The role of the court is to go through the dissolution of a marriage and figure that out legally, not emotionally. And so often my clients say, the judge needs to know that he or she is a terrible person. The judge isn't interested in that.
Right.
It's not an issue, and it's not about fairness. It's about what's equitable under the law. And this is a really hard thing to come to terms with for a lot of clients, especially if you weren't the one who initiated the process, or if you initiated the process because of the history that the two of you have had together, and you just want a judge to shake his finger at your partner or your spouse and say, knock it off, be a better partner. And that's not the role of the judge. So
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And it's not fair. And you need a therapist to help you work through this. And your friends get tired of hearing about it after a while. Even though they want to be supportive, they get tired of it. And they don't always offer you the best advice or information because they're not walking in your shoes.
They're not often very objective on it either, which is something else that people need to think about, and just touching on judges, which obviously we need judges. I mean, our society runs on rules, but at the same time, what sometimes is forgotten is that judges are actually people, and they wake up and they have good days and they have bad days. They have their biases. They interpret the rules differently sometimes. And, in Cook County, we have multiple judges as an example. And, they may look at the same set of facts and come up with a little bit of a different outcome or decision on how that outcome should look. And so it's not so clear cut just because you think you're right, that you're right, or that somebody else is going to see that you're right. That's another piece to this, and I love what you're saying, because this kind of leads me to something I always tell people is that it sounds kind of intuitive sometimes, but adding people to your team can actually help your outcome and be cheaper. Right. So let's talk a little bit about preparing and being ready if we can. And you need to develop that team to take care of you, as we've said, emotionally, legally, financially. I would make a horrible, I'm a cold, heartless MBA CPA, right? I don't make a good therapist, right? You need a therapist for therapy. You need a financial guy for finance. You need your legal expert for the legal system. The other piece is you need to know your particular situation, because not every lawyer is the right lawyer. Not every finance person is the right finance person, right? So can we talk a little bit about how you guys help people in building that team and moving forward?
Yeah, so a lot of the process is information gathering, issue spotting. When we talk with an individual, as they start the process or are considering it, we want to know what what their challenges are and what they think might be the most challenging about going through the process. And then we listen and try to and figure out or try to narrow down what's the information we need. And what is sort of going with what Bobbie is saying, in the sense of a lot of times people feel like a judge should be holding other people accountable. Like, I had a client that said to me, well, clearly my spouse is crazy. Any judge can see that. So let's start with that statement in terms of what a team looks like. And it could be a collaborative kind of situation, or it could be in front of a judge. So when we talk about, okay, clearly my spouse is crazy, and the judge needs to see that, and the judge needs to see that person's craziness needs to be taken into consideration with a parenting plan. Well, judge isn't going to take your word for it that your spouse is crazy. When I talk about information gathering, I'm talking about what are the external sources of information that can help verify, can help educate the judge about what's going on in your case. And so it may be a mental health professional that evaluates your spouse. It could be a child specialist that helps understand what's going through, what your child is struggling with as they're going through this process, or what they've been dealing with before. It could be a real estate appraiser. That's an information gathering process. It could be a financial person. And so you have a choice when you go through the process of, and sometimes it's not a choice. I shouldn't say that so easily, because sometimes if you're not getting anywhere in an outside of court process, you have to have a judge. So I understand that, but you do have a choice of trying to do things outside of court. And I think it's worthwhile to try to do that and build a team to help you gather that information. Because as Bobbie said, lawyers are terrible therapists. We don't do it all. So understanding what's the information we need to gather. Is it financial information? Who's our team member that we can pull in that can help us understand that? Is it a mental health issue? Who's a team member we need to pull in? And so that's one way of that's really how one of the ways we unravel what's going on with a couple, and how we can get them from point A to point B, is try to understand what's the information that we need to be able to help divide something or come to a resolution or conclusion.
So as I'm listening to Nanette, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the people who are listening and saying, oh my gosh, where do I find these people? How do I get there? What is going on? So I have to give a little bit of a plug for the Lilac Tree. So let me just take a step back and say that we are a nonprofit organization. In other words, we're not private. We don't make, quote, money off of you. And our role is to help you find the people that you need that Nanette is talking about. So we have referrals. And how do we get our referrals? Our board of directors kind of give I don't know if people still remember, there was something called the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval about a while back. Our board members give us the okay that they've investigated these referrals and they think that they're really good professionally. So we have referrals for lawyers. We have referrals for mediators. We have referrals for, so there's something called alternative dispute resolution. So we have mediators and collaborative lawyers. We have child therapists that we can refer you to. We have individual therapists we can refer you to. We have financial planners we can refer you to, just like Hirsch is. We have real estate appraisers. We have a whole list of people that we've used in the past that seem to be really good at what they do. Beside that, when you're getting your team together, sometimes you need support, as we've talked about. Not sometimes, I think all the time. And we have, besides being an information resource and a referral resource, we are also a support resource. We have, at any given time, perhaps 5 or 6 support groups going on. And a support group might be a group that is just for people who are contemplating divorce. Or a support group might be for someone who is what we call in the process of a gray divorce, someone who's been married over 20 years and now is in a divorce process. Or a support group might be for someone who has small children, or someone who is married to someone, the big term these days is a narcissist. So our support groups can be general or they can be very specific. And there's nothing like being in a group of 5 or 6 or 7 other people that are going through a very similar process as you are going through. Help you with this process.
I do have to say that sometimes you feel you're very alone in this process, and this is something that really helps you. And I do have to take a break. We are about 3 to 4 minutes over.
Oh,
I didn't want to stop because there was such great discussion going on, so I didn't want to stop us in the middle. But before we do go to break, I'm going to ask, how can, if people want to get in touch with each one of you, how can they get in touch with you? What's a quick, easy way? And then we're going to go to a break.
You can get in touch with me by, you can go to my website or the firm website, which is gmrfamilylaw.com, or you can email me at nmccarthy. So that's N as in no, or maybe that's a little too negative, but nmccarthy, nmccarthy at gmrfamilylaw.com.
Yeah. And for me, for Bobbie Gordon, it's really the Lilac Tree. I represent the Lilac Tree, and our website is just info, INFO at, and here's the hard part, the THELILACTREE.org, and .org just means we're a not-for-profit. And the phone number is 847-328-0313. And either of those ways are, or you can go to our website, which is again, thelilactree.org.
Great. We will be right back. Thank you.
Sure.
Hello and welcome back to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am Hirsch Simon, your host. We are on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and I just want to quickly recap some of the things that we've spoken about. There's no way I can always write them all down. So we spoke a little bit about the environment, the law, how society has been changing over time, and to see or look at the divorce process, that people should be aware of some of the things and what they should try to avoid. And we also spoke about what are some of the must-dos before stepping into a negotiation or a courtroom, how divorce and the process can take its emotional toll, about self-care, maintaining a healthy emotional state. We spoke about preparing and getting ready, developing a team, and making sure that that team, they are the right professionals for the right need, emotionally, legally, financial well-being, whatever else it might be that you need. And again, we started off by saying, and all throughout, we've spoken a little bit about preparing for divorce, getting educated, walking into that negotiation or into that environment, whatever it might be that you're going into, prepared, understanding your priorities. I always tell people, don't just know yours, try to match them up with what you think your spouse's is going to be. And I work through that with people so that they know where are the hard discussions or hard negotiations going to be, what can they use to give up in order to get more of what they want. And obviously everything outside of your priorities is kind of clutter or distraction. Do not get involved or engaged too much in those, but really be prepared walking in. And again, take care of yourself financially, or emotionally, prepare for yourself legally, financially. So we've spoken about the Lilac Tree, and I appreciate, Bobbie, before we went to the break, giving a great overview of many of the things that they do. It is a resource I have referred people to often, and the Lilac Tree is wonderful. They, as I said, are putting on Divorce University in a few weeks. That's May 1st through the 3rd. And they're holding this incredible event. And again, it's the 36th year that they've put it together, which is actually unbelievable when you think about that. Resources have changed so much, even over the last 5 to 7 years. So I'm just thinking 36 years ago for this, it's so pioneering in what they've been able to do and maintain. Usually this is in person, and that kind of limited people's participation to the Chicagoland area for the most part. This year it's online, which is great, and I think it's very exciting. I've been involved in the planning, and I think there are some unbelievable opportunities to learn and to really get involved in taking, if I can say, control of the process for yourself. Much of what we've already spoken about is going to be in this conference, but I'm going to ask if you guys can give a little bit of an overview as well of the event as a whole.
So, Hirsch, if you don't mind, can I just take a step back and say a few things about what we discussed previously?
Absolutely.
One thing you need to understand is the Lilac Tree is completely virtual. Everything, support groups, information sessions, programming is all on your computer. You don't have to come into an office. In fact, we don't even have an office anymore. Everybody is remote and operating that way because that has turned out to allow us to provide the most services to the most people. So that support groups, if you would join one, you might be in one part of Chicago. I've had support groups where people are in Arizona or California or any place else going through the similar process. And so it's not important that you actually come face to face, in person rather, and because everything is by computer. The other point I wanted to make before we went into Divorce University is that you don't have to, as we said earlier, listen to this program doesn't mean you're getting divorced today or tomorrow. It may be a planning phase that you're going through and a time for you to look at what is your skill set and what needs to be updated in that skill set in terms of work experience. Some people have a plan that they're going to get divorced when their oldest child graduates high school. And they've got 5 or 6 or 7 years to do that. So I'll say to them, well, what did you do? What have you done previously? Do you need to get a job for your financial security? What skill sets or skills or licensures or certifications do you need to do that? And can you do that while you're waiting to get divorced? Is there planning that can be done prior to the actual divorce to get your ducks in a row? So I just wanted to add those couple points, and then I'd be happy to talk about Divorce University, or what we call DU, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So one of the best, there's so many great things about it. And what I hear from people, one of their favorite things is the fact that we have judges actually speaking. We're kind of afraid of the judges because they have a lot of power over our lives. And maybe we're like worried what they're going to say or what they're going to think. At DU, and we have judges from the different courthouses speaking from the different counties. We have one speaking from Lake County, one speaking from Cook County, and one speaking from DuPage County, which is amazing to hear a judge's perspective on divorce. We also have, you can go to our website, which you as you well know is thelilactree.org, and download and see a program about Divorce University. You can sign up. It should be going live in the next day or two. We're just trying to work out a few kinks, but I love that you have access to all of these professionals. As Hirsch was saying, the world has changed so much, and you don't need to go in person, physically in person. You can do it all virtually in person. So the university offers lots of formats. There are lectures where you may be one of 100 people or 200 people attending, but there's also small group discussions where you'd be sitting around a virtual roundtable, perhaps you and say 5 or 6 other people, maybe 7 people. And at that table is a divorce attorney and maybe a therapist and maybe a financial expert. And people can go around and ask their individual questions. You can hear those questions, which helps you to think about, oh, that reminds me, I wanted to ask whatever, and learn from the answers that you're receiving from these different people. And then there'll be the opportunity to change those tables and to talk to other lawyers and other financial people and other therapists and other child therapists. There will also be breakout topics on a variety of things, the emotional roller coaster of divorce, or how to help your children get through this, or how to fill out some of these horrible forms that so many people are afraid of, financial affidavits, on and on and on. It's just incredible.
So I'll add to that. And I don't know if I made the connection earlier between Bobbie and myself, but I'm a board member of the Lilac Tree, and I've been involved with the Lilac Tree since about 2006. And one of the things that always stood out to me and I so appreciated is when I'd go, so it used to be, it was twice a year and then once a year. And there were these big events, and there would be usually sometimes over 100 people that would come, and there were attorneys there and mental health professionals and financial people, and it really gave people an opportunity to just walk up and ask their question and not be afraid. And spontaneously something would come up and that they'd hear, and they'd want to grab an attorney and just, or mental health professional or financial person, just to ask their question. And that's what we were there to do, is we were there to lift the veil of the cloud of the of the questions. And so it was fantastic. And what I would hear a lot of times is people would say that, as Bobbie was saying, because you go doesn't mean you're doing it right that moment. A lot of times people would say, this is my 3rd year being here, or I've been here, because they kept wanting to come and get more and more information. But we are really trying to do that, provide that experience this year as we go virtual. And one of the things that we've really found is that access has been such a gift for people. Being able to log on from wherever they're at has been such a gift for people, to more so than we could have realized.
I would say the first one that I went to, it was myself and an attorney at one of the tables. We were speaking financial matters. People could pick and choose which tables they wanted to go speak to people. And there were a lot of people just wanting to learn, how does this work? This is something that most people are very unfamiliar with. It's daunting to take that first step. And being able to have this kind of environment, and quite honestly, virtual makes it even more anonymous in many ways. Being able to learn and get kind of the education that they need, and what are the steps or what are the things I need to think about before I make a decision, is invaluable, I think, personally. So I do encourage everyone. I do have to also apologize. We could speak about this for another full show, I'm sure, but we do have to start wrapping up. So I just want to confirm or put out there again, go to the lilactree.org. That's where you can register, and I encourage everybody to do that as well. You can do it from the comfort of your home. You can do it from wherever you want at this point, which is great. So please do go there. I'm going to ask once again if each of you can share how people can get in touch with you before we wrap up the show.
Thanks, Hirsch. So again, my name is Nanette McCarthy. I am an attorney in Chicago, Illinois. The name of my firm is Griffin, McCarthy and Rice. You can reach me at nmccarthy, nmccarthy at gmrfamilylaw.com. You can find us on our website, gmrfamilylaw.com, and our phone number is 312-782-4244.
And for me, I'm Bobbie Gordon, but you can reach me at info@the, and you've got to put the in there, thelilactree.org. You can reach us by phone at 847-328-0313 and leave a message. We will always call you back. Please keep in mind, we're a very small organization. Even though we sound very mighty, we're fairly small, but someone will definitely get back to you.
I would say small in number, but mighty in what you do. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I am Hirsch Sermon, the host of the Financial Wellness Hour. Please do reach out to me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. You can reach out with questions for me or for Nanette or for Bobbie, our guests today. I do want to thank CC Schatz, my producer, for making everything happen from behind the scenes. And again, go to thelilactree.org to register for Divorce University. And I would say, although the legality of a divorce is state-specific, your emotions and needing financial wellness are across the board. So I encourage anyone, wherever you're listening, to think about registering, learning, taking care of yourselves. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to you joining me on my next show. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hirsch.
Thank you, Hirsch.